Hello, everybody, and welcome to our February Chief Executives vlog. Those who have been watching will know that recent vlogs we've been doing is on government policies related to Forward Trust work. We're doing that as a link to the webinars we're holding in 2025 with our staff to talk about the policies that affect our work. This one is going to be about employment policy, skills, welfare, all the things related to employment policy and how it affects our work through our employment directorate or the efforts we make to get our clients into jobs. For this one as well is a little bit different. We are joined by Panditharatna, my colleague, who is our expert on the employment market. And it's going to be a two-hander. I'm going to play the Jeremy Paxman role. I'm going to be asking questions of Asi, and he's going to give us benefit of his knowledge and skills around this area. So welcome, Asi, and I think the place we ought to start is talk about the new government. We're watching the new government to see whether it's making any changes to social policy, criminal justice policy, and we have heard lots of statements of intent from DWP or other parts of government about what they're going to do about getting people into work, reducing the welfare bill, but we aren't quite sure what is going to follow in terms of actual action. From your perspective, what do you think the government are most worried about? Are they trying to bring welfare costs down, or are they looking more at investing in skills and getting the economy going? What's really driving them?
So I think that's a good question, Mike. I think really the government is trying to do three things here. The first thing it's trying to do through the new white paper is to really to raise the employment rate to about sort of 80%. So if they raise the employment rate to about sort of 80%, people like the Learning and Work Institute basically say that that would bring another 23 billion pounds into the into the country. So that's going to be one of the big sort of priority areas, obviously around that. The second thing is around skills policy. So we currently have about one third of our vacancies are due to skills shortages, and that's increased since 2013. So basically, there's an insufficient supply of individuals who are in the labour market for specific types of jobs. And that's also down to the fact that we just don't have enough skilled individuals. So, and there's lots of research to show that if you have a much better qualification, you're more likely to actually to get a better job and a sustainable career. And the third thing the government is bringing through is really the employment rights bill. And essential, that's going to ban things like 0-hour contracts. And we know through work done by people like the Work Foundation that at least 1 in 5 workers in the UK face a lot of severe insecurity at work. They have unpredictable hours, poor employment protections, not very good sort of career opportunities. And the poor quality of work can then force people to leave work and then become ill. So I think those are the three things the government's focused on. But exactly as you said before, if we get the employment rate up, it's going to save money on the benefits bill. And this is what every government, whatever their type or colour, has been, is really focused on, is really getting that burden down.
I've seen a slide that you use in your speeches, and hopefully you'll bring that to the policy webinar we're having later this month, that says to get to this 80%, a big chunk of the people that the government need to get back into work are people currently signed off with health conditions. What is it that is led to the increase of that numbers, and what do we need to do to address those health conditions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're talking really about people who are inactive, as economically inactive. That's become a really big theme since since really sort of the pandemic. So actually, the percentage of those who are inactive has gone up since the pandemic, and there are at least of that 2.8 million who are ill, who've also got a whole range of disabilities. About 53% of them have got long-term sickness, and they could be suffering from mental health issues, depression, anxiety, And that is obviously like a very big sort of issue. And there's a lot of research that says that stress and depression, anxiety accounted for at least 17.1 million lost days at work due to this. So I think that's a very important one. I think also there is a bit of a demographic here. So a lot of older people, so people who are, sort of who are 50 plus have also been leaving the workforce, some due to ill health, some due to caring duties, and that's also a challenge as well. So a lot of people over 50 have left the workforce. A lot of it is also down to ill health, physical problems as well. Also, we have a problem also around sort of young people. So a lot of 18 to 24-year olds, those rates of unemployment and also sort of economically inactive um, have also been going up. So one of the challenges for the government is how you get these people back into work. This kind of 2.8 million who are basically long-term sick, disabilities, and also suffering a whole range of other issues from depression to a whole range of mental health issues.
So we can expect Labour to come forward with some pretty significant plans to address this problem. But of course, it's not a blank sheet of paper. We've been working under the Conservative schemes to try and get more people back into work and off benefits. Could you say a little bit about how those schemes have been working, and do you think they've worked well, and have they helped people like Forward
Yeah.
Trust to do our work?
So we so obviously under the previous sort of administrations, there have been programs. So, for example, as you know, Forward Trust deliver obviously like a few of those. So Restart is a good example. That's obviously a mainstream sort of employment program for those who've been unemployed for more than 12 months, and we are now getting clients coming through those programs that are now have got a whole range of much more challenging sort of issues. So that's been an important program, as well as those models like things. So like programs like the IPS, the individual placement service, which we also deliver, which is for substance misuse clients. And there are more of those types of programs that are now sort of coming online. The big challenge you have is a lot of these programs, particularly now that are working with a lot more challenging individuals, need a lot more resource. They need a lot more sort of intensive support, and you really have to do a lot more sort of a huge amount more of sort of outreach and obviously community engagement, because some of these individuals may not be claiming types of benefit, so you have to go and find them and you have to use the community networks. So there is a lot of resource there, and on some of these contracts, including sort of Restart, most of the payments to the providers come through the job outcomes. Now that's great to have some form of a payment by results service, but however, if you have to find much more challenging individuals that aren't going to be in job centres, you are going to need a sort of payment model that really helps providers to go out and find these people, particularly sort of charities and social enterprises that don't have huge amounts of resources or cash sort of behind them. So we have been asking DWP and other governments to really have a look at the models of how they incentivize the providers to work with these client groups, because it will be a much more sort of challenging sort of approach. Also, these new programs will require smaller caseloads, employment advisors to have much more time with the individuals, working with employers so employers can really understand the individuals, and helping employers to understand how they can help these individuals, like things like the Access to Work program, occupational health. So really helping people to stay in work, because employers have a very, very big role here as well.
Now that reminds me of a frustration I think we've had for years at Forward Trust, is that the employment schemes we're working within, they treat everybody as unemployed as the same type of need, and haven't made allowances for those people who are furthest from the job market, where you effectively have a higher unit cost to work with them.
Mm.
The schemes just had numerical, you got 1,000 people. If you get 50% of them into work, great, you get your money. Um, do you see that either recently or with the Labour government, that the people in charge of these schemes are recognizing they've got to do something different with the people furthest from the job market, mental health, addiction, offenders?
Yes, I think obviously since the launch of the white paper, obviously sort of last year, the government is now going to start to procure some new programs, and they obviously sort of announced a lot of that obviously in the white paper. So we have Connect to Work, which is now in the process of being launched. The great news is that it also be like a devolved program, so it would be through the combined authorities and local authorities. And that will definitely focus on some of those groups that you have mentioned. A lot of the groups that we work with, long-term unemployed, ex-offenders, people who are on sort of treatment programs, people who've got mental health issues, people who are homeless. So all of those issues are important.
So could I
But
just check that
yeah.
Connect to Work for our listeners, that is Labour's current proposal of what they're going to do about this issue, and it's in a white paper. What does that mean? Is it a proposal or is there funding announced or
Yeah,
where is it at?
so they have now announced sort of funding, and they've left it now to the different combined authorities and local authorities to now start to sort of procure it. Not all not all combined authorities are going to procure it. Some are going to try to do it sort of in-house, which is really up to them. We would obviously encourage them to talk to partners like ourselves who've got the expertise across the range from substance misuse to employment, also to include housing and lots of other services, but it is going to be a mixed bunch. The big challenge will there be enough resources put into this program? And because it's a DWP devolved program, which we really encourage, because DWP haven't always devolved their programs, will there be an adjustment on the payment models to allow providers like ourselves to have the time to invest more in that community side to engage, as well as having the role models and all of this? Otherwise, it will become another very, very sort of challenging sort of program.
What's the
Just
timetable on this? Is
well,
this
it's
starting this year or when does it start?
Well, it should be going live around now, but because of devolution, every combined authority will obviously do it under its own sort of time scale. We've got 3 years to see this. Funding has been sort of committed, and also I'm sort of in addition to Connect to Work, the NHS and also through sort of OHID will continue to support the IPS sort of programs. And we are looking at a review also of the Career Service and Job Centre Plus integration. The white paper also talks about youth guarantee, and we're also wondering what will happen with things like foundation apprenticeships, which will be targeted more at the sort of 18 to 24-year-olds. So there's a lot to obviously sort of look at, but this is the first really big program. Obviously, from about springtime, there needs to be a replacement for Restart. So, but we haven't heard any things about what that will look like. But the government will have to issue a framework, and Forward Trust will also be very interested in that. But currently, we're seeing the devolution of some of the DWP programs, which aligns to the Secretary of State's really what she calls the blueprint
Yeah.
for employment.
So an interesting year for new ideas that we're hoping is going to point towards our specialisms. We ought to say that we've been a pretty good performer with Restart. Your department has sort of won accolades for what we do down in Kent. Are we expecting the next phase of Restart to allow us to do more of that type of work?
We hope so. So we hope if the government, well, we hope the government will first launch its framework, and then they'll issue a replacement for Restart, probably more so like the end of 2025. The challenge we've got to see is whether obviously how the sort of economy is doing around sort of unemployment. What happens to any reform of Job Centre Plus, and where the scale of the resources are. But we definitely have got a good track record. I mean, we've supported nearly over sort of 2,000 participants on Restart with a very good job outcome success rates. And some of those clients, well, a growing majority of those clients are now from very difficult sort of backgrounds. So we're in a good place. We've also got our skills programs as well. I suppose we would like to hear a bit more about how the skills offers are going to obviously sort of evolve. Or they've been devolved for a time, and there'll be more devolution. And also, I mean, how this all links to the future, future sort of commissioning of probation, the CRS, because fundamentally those models will be about linking ex-offenders into mainstream services rather than, sort of repeating those services.
Well, that brings me nicely to my last question, is specifically about offenders. We've always argued at Forward Trust that ex-offenders are a group that have been underused in the labour market. Lots of barriers to them getting into the labour market. We've done some very creative things about that. What do you see in the future for specific focus on offenders to get them into jobs? What does it look like at the moment? Is it going to get any better?
Well, it's going to be interesting what the MOJ obviously want to do that for those who are leaving prison. There's lots of initiatives in prison that we've obviously worked with people like the New Futures Network. Things like Connect to Work will include ex-offenders, which is very, very positive. We have to wait to see what the new probation contracts and CRS contracts sort of look at. But in the DWP space, I think we're now seeing the ex-offenders will be obviously part of these programs because they're also going to be sort of more likely to be long-term unemployed or obviously ill, or they've got mental health issues, or they're obviously sort of inactive. What we would like to also see is DWP also talk about self-employment and also some kind of enterprise support programs for these groups as well, because we know quite a large proportion of ex-offenders do go into self-employment. There aren't any programs there sort of currently that are funded by the state. All our programs are funded by really charitable trusts and
Well,
obviously the
that
private sector, so that would be very helpful.
well, that seems to me to be the challenge that we hope improves in the coming years is the efforts to get offenders into employment are worthy, but they're very fragmented. We've had experience of bits of money here, different initiatives there. With James Timpson in the hot seat in the Ministry of Justice, do you have any signs that he's going to bring some clarity to it?
We hope so. I mean, obviously, he's launched the new employer councils, which are an extension of the advisory boards in prisons. They'll have a much more community focus, but we hope that they have a bit more teeth. Maybe they have some resources. James Timpson actually be a good opportunity for him to look at the role of the New Futures Network. Does he need some more partners that are working in the community? And that can also link to what the government's talking around, obviously, like things like sustainable employment, good quality work, because there's little point in putting like an ex-offender into a poor quality job that then leads them to then become unemployed and go into the cycle again. So if we can focus on good quality work as well, that provide all these supportive routes for people, then we're more likely also to get to this sort of employment rate. So it takes us back to where we started, really.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Alcy. An awful lot
Okay.
there, an interesting year by the looks of things, and we'll develop these ideas in our webinar that we're having on 18th of February. So if staff are looking at this, sign up for the webinar, and you can hear more from me, Alcy, and others on that webinar. Thanks for your attention. We'll see you
Thank
again
you.
soon.
Thank you.